and took a week off because this laptop needed some time to kind of like some pampering. Took it, changed a few things, including the fan, and gave it a good cleaning. It's been with me for about 6 years now, man. Amazing. Today, we have a video. I want to change. I need to change. I have to change. Why not I have changed? To what though? Let us explore. I want to change. I need to change. I have to change. Why not I have changed? To what though? Let us explore. Let me repeat something I kind of always say, especially with like these weird scripts that are like, what is it that I'm actually reading? The idea is whenever I read it, it triggers something in my head, either a memory, either a thought process, or either it's just kind of like a state. And this one triggered a state. Because I want to change, I need to change, I have to change. I wrote an article once, I published it. It's called Must, Should, Need. And the idea behind all of these are kind of like, uh, you can call them pressure points that do more harm than good. Because there's absolutely no want is a state, need is a state, and have is a state. But have basically, I have to kind of feels awkward. Why not I have changed? And the thing that came to me the minute I read them was the idea that just realizing that is enough as proof that change has already happened. Right? So I'm going to use what I always talk about. It's like you have a certain environment, and it doesn't matter what. Let's just say a family environment. It's the easiest to reflect on. The house looks always the same, right? Until the day you kind of notice that one book that your dad has. Because it's always there in the background. And that's basically with us when we standardized or when we normalize our environments. And I'm using the physical to kind of like to reflect, to give the metaphor on how our mind kind of like does its thing. Once you realize that book is there, let's just say you don't actually come close to it or touch it. But anytime you're looking in the direction that it exists, it starts popping out, right? For some reason, like it caught your attention once and it starts popping out. And ultimately, your choice is either to take a step forward and remove the book, look at it, or just kind of like leave it there and always kind of have it. Oh, it's just there. I saw it. I say that because there was a book I looked at within the house that I lived in for so long. And I'd always see it and I'd notice it's there and I'd know it's there and I'd know where to find it, but I never actually pulled it out and opened it. And for some reason, out of all the books, that was the one book that kind of like stuck with me. And last year, I entered the house randomly. And just looking at the house weirdly from an outsider's perspective, because I wasn't living there anymore, I could only see the book. And so I took it and read it. So us observing something triggers the change that we're kind of looking at. We still have no idea what it is. And we don't necessarily have to, right? Because if something happens within the present realm, it doesn't necessarily have to be explained in the past, right? I don't know. Like our experience has led us to see something new. It doesn't necessarily mean we understand it or we know of it or we're comfortable with it even. Right? Sometimes our experience prepares us for something. Sometimes our experience kind of like creates enough chaos for something to connect the dots. And sometimes our experience kind of like exposes how much empty space we have. right? Whether it's an experience of organizing or whether an experience of growth or wasn't whether an experience of just stagnancy. And all of these are valid like types of experiences. I'm sure that I can think of different, but for some reason I'm always considering the linear approach to it. So when I say I want to change or I need to change or I have to change, I'm kind of putting pressure without acknowledging that me noticing any of these three that I want to change or need to change or have to change is already the change in itself manifesting within me. And I'm using manifesting as when you plant a seed, it starts growing. So the question I ask myself, why not I have changed? Like for me to notice that I need to change or change is necessary or deemed that's the time when we actually move forward. Effectively, what I'm doing is basically changing, no? And changing happens in grammatically. Changing is basically the momentum happening right now. And so for something to be, for me to be changing, that means at one point I split from whatever was and whatever is is changing right now, which means change has already happened. It just hasn't kind of like explored itself through me for me to notice the details, right? Because sometimes you change and you can actually see results. For example, if you study for an exam, like after a week, you pass. A subject you didn't know, suddenly you know, right? That's you changed. Extra knowledge. You don't realize how you change, but that's you actually moving. That which comes with change. Well, there's also I go to the gym and then it takes me like a year for me to kind of like see how I'm standing up straight, I'm jumping easily, right? Because like it's kind of like that momentum. I have changed to be the person that goes to the gym. But then after 1 year of going to the gym, then basically my body is a representative of somebody who's gone to the gym and changed every single day he went there, right? So I have changed. And here's, I think, where we could actually explore because I need to change. I must change. I have to change. That's all stuff that kind of like is projecting what you think should happen for some purpose. It's not really clarifying why change is necessary. It's just applying pressure on change without a goal or a task at hand or a vision in mind. A task at hand, a vision in mind. And I think the goal is basically the small goals that kind of like apply to what's between the tasks and the visions and the vision you have. So technically, when you actually are trying to, when you're saying to yourself, I need to change, I want to change, I have to change, that means you already have changed, but to what? And that could be explored, right? That could be the structure that allows for you to expand on your current position, or at the very least, like understand your current position. It's like what triggered you to say that and understand it differently and how you interact with that and, and your relationship with it. With that clarity allows the things you're changing into to kind of happen more seamlessly. It relieves you of your effort, right? Because like, I have to change is me forcing something without truly understanding why it was something that I picked on or decided or relevant. It's the relevance, right? It's like, no, I'm saying I have to, I'm saying I need to, I'm saying I want to. Like something in me is kind of like calling on that change. And it seems like it's a better investment for us to kind of like focus on why, right? Like, why is that deemed necessary? Why is that need crucial for our growth, for our vision, for the things that we're trying to accomplish? And what am I changing to? Change is change. Everything is change. It's the universal constant. But to what am I changing? because a lot of people forget themselves, and I think that's the social aspect of discipline, where people build upon a certain structure that worked at one point, and with what I call the grind, what happens is they kind of like become very rigid in their approach, which leads to change, but doesn't really harmonize with who they are most of the time. And that's when you see stronger egos active within the people that are actually accomplishing stuff. It's funny because I feel that's the game. That's the difference between the millionaire game and the billionaire game. Is the billionaire game understands themselves fully, while the millionaires basically kind of force themselves, because the millionaire is playing a game in society while the billionaire is creating their own game. And so there's the difference in that structure is to create your own game, you kind of have to be patient with yourself. But to play other people's game, you have to kind of like apply what works and kind of like succeed into it. I like it. Instead of I want to change, I need to change, or I have to change. I kind of have to recognize that that alone points to the fact that I have changed. And ultimately, I get to explore to what have I become that allowed me to see this need, necessity. And then from there, I think that's where basically I don't have to be, I'm a part of the change instead of actually, it's just like instead of an observer of the things that need to be done in order for change to happen. I'll be more linked to it. It's a video. I love you guys. Peace out.